Hey everybody, this is Danielle Nicole from Cry No More, and you are watching John the Ninja.
John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the dojo, and you know it's the John the Ninja studio. Stop playing with me, people. And the person I'm speaking with, the blues queen herself, let me tell you, I'm in such awe of her amazing skills, not just for singing, but not just for playing the bass, but also creating albums that really, really get you that blues feel. Let me say my favorite quote by her, and I am quoting this one. At the end of the day, this is a business, and I'm a mama, and I have a job to do. This future legend and current Hall of Famer has so many accolades that it's not just with her family, but on her own, proving that it doesn't have to be a man's world. It is a woman's world. The person I'm speaking of is Danielle Nicole. She belongs to the Schnebelen clan, very famous in Kansas City, Missouri, for the family having a storied history in music. And she's gone on not only to get a major in dance, but she's also sung the blues for over almost 25 years. I believe it's 24 on the count. But the point I'm trying to make, even with having done so much work with her brothers in Trampled Under Foot, coming to Philadelphia, learning to play the bass, and them eventually being inducted into the Hall of Fame in Missouri, my guys, I got to tell you, her on her own eclipses all those accomplishments. Danielle's accolades are becoming too numerous to even count, with the most recent ones for her currently Grammy nominated album Cry No More, which I'm sorry, there was no debate. It debuted at #1 and it received Best Contemporary Blues Album. Not only that, she's a six-time Blues Music Award recipient and is the first woman to receive that coveted Bass Player Instrumentalist of the Year award. First woman to do it, and first woman to be given that title. Ladies and gentlemen, she's coming to Ardmore Music Hall, a place very special to me, not just for tired hands, but so many great musicians have rolled through there. So I'm not even going to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, Danielle Nicole, Mademoiselle, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to speak with you again. I repeat it all the time on my channel. You are one of the first really well received, highly viewed interviews of my career, and it's been like that for years. So again, the first time I talked to you, I was blown away. Now I'm getting to talk to you again, I feel like we're not even needing the notes. We're having a genuine chit chat back and forth.
Well,
So,
yeah, you know your stuff.
so Mira, just a selfish question before we get into the nitty gritty.
Mhm.
Mira, why can't I get any more vinyl of Cry No More on your website? That was like the one thing I was like, I gotta get it. I gotta get it gone. Sold out.
Well, I'm supposed to have more this fall, but right before COVID hit, there are only a few pressing factories, and there's more now that are being built as a result of what happened. But one of the major pressing factories burned down, and there were only three in the world. And so that just completely a third of production was just completely gone. And then you had issues with COVID and all the staffing and everything. So they're supposed to be back. They're supposed to be pressed. They're in the queue, as they say right now. But no, I've been chomping at the bit to get it myself.
But Mira, it's again, the first time I saw you with George Thorogood back in Delaware, I was just in awe. We're excluding the heels because your major was dance, so I was like, all right, now I know how she can do those 10-inch heels and be okay. But just having done the prep work for, say, playing music, having been a guitarist, having studied music on the vocal level, actually doing the practices for classical training, your vocal range and your style always fascinates me. It captivates me. I'm curious because it's been almost 2 decades, almost 25 years of you singing. I was curious to what some of the things you do to protect your voice, because I've heard it from all kinds of musicians. Some of them, like Lemmy Kilmister, I don't care. I smoke and drink and then I go out and do it, and it keeps up. But then you have like the Rob Halfords, who are like, you know what, I sometimes I got to refuse interviews. Sometimes I just can't talk that day, you know. So how have you been on that journey of protecting your coveted voice?
It's been it's just trial and error, because like you just basically said, everybody's different, and every throat is different, every body is different. I've noticed that, since being out on my own and not sing, because with my brothers I only sang half the night. So when I first started out singing, it would get pretty rough pretty quickly. just singing the whole time. But, it's really, for me personally, it's a mixture of, tons of water and as much rest as you can get. Those are the two things that seem to really heal me up. And we, after being off and not touring so much over the last couple of years and then we had some pretty chunky tours come up in April and May, and I was concerned. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, but we got through. And no, we didn't get through. We slayed our May run, and we did 12 shows in 13 days. So I did 6 shows, and then we had one day off. And I ended up having, it was a travel day and an interview day. And so I basically worked 13 days straight. But, for me, it's just, it's protecting it by just getting as much rest as I can and drinking water. I try not to drink alcohol before the shows anymore. And as a result, I'm not so loud and boisterous at the merch table, because that's when, when you're talking to people and you're energized from the show and everybody's excited, and so you start speaking really loudly, and then you wake up and you don't have a voice, and you're like, well, I didn't sing that hard, and it's actually all the speaking. So I can understand how someone would say, well, I have to cancel my interview today because it's harder on your voice. So yeah, just water and rest.
And,
No magic prayers or anything.
and Mira, it's just, again, the pandemic threw everybody into a weird space. For me personally, that's the most busy I've ever been in my life, not just professionally, but family. And I listened to all these stories of, I got some people that are like, bro, I was broke, I was worried. I had other people like, man, I was chilling, I was with my family every day. For me, it'd always be a time of like, it wasn't necessarily fear of what was happening. It was more so of like, I'm starting to feel a tighter grind than I've ever felt before. So how did you guys handle the pandemic when it happened? Because you were still touring, you're still doing your thing, but
Mhm.
I want to know specifically how it threw you in. Were you able to enjoy it because you had more time with your kids and you got to stay home with them a little longer and etc., or was it like, okay, I really got to bucker down and figure how we can generate revenue for the band?
Well, it was both. There would have been no other situation in my life where I would have taken this time off. I would have had to been forced to. And that's the life of a musician, man. We grind. And that's there is no like, there's no early retirement or anything like that. It's you work. So it was really wonderful to be home with the boys and be a mom and be there, you know for as long as I was. But then there was also, hey, where I'm not providing for my family. I would definitely say that Brandon got us through it financially. I had a savings, and so that ended up running out. And we were doing, I saw there was such a big desperation of a lot of musicians. And I had an issue with seeing all of these musicians busking for tips on on social media. And because I we did some live streams, but they were always ticketed. And we tried to present it in as much of a professional manner as we could, because like I said, it is a business. And um I felt like my music wasn't free before, and it definitely shouldn't be now, when we're not working at all. It was just like a light switch. And so um the ticketed live streams that we did do helped a little bit. But Brandon was able to work with his father, because they had a sign shop, and they were still having business was booming, when they're just like, because they're like having to make these signs about the changing businesses and all this, and because everybody still needed to get the word out about their businesses and everything. So he was working with his dad and able to basically take care of us. And so we were lucky in that aspect, where it was he had a necessary business to do, but musically everything just kind of stopped. And it was hard because, you know, like you said, it's I'm at 25 years of doing this professionally, and you know, that's all I know. You know, I'm like, I can't go, you know, it's not I'm not like poor pity me, but I'm just like, you know, this is all I know. All I know is how to be a musician and a parent and a mom. And so, you know, I'm getting to enjoy being at home with the boys and having that family life. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I am worried because I'm going against my nature, which is to provide for my family, going against my nature, which is to connect with people and play music, you know, because you get used to meeting people and forming relationships, and you know, um so it was a bit of both, you know, and I tried to enjoy the time home as much as I possibly could without having nervous breakdowns at the same time.
And before we get back to Brandon and Gogo and the band now, you know, I remember distinctly you saying you have a very structured schedule about
Mhm.
how you're on tour and then you'll be home. I think it's a 3 weeks on and then at least a week back just to make sure you're
Mhm.
home with the boys. But when I first interviewed you in 2016, finding the balance was still something you were trying to get. You know, you were literally doing everything yourself. You know, you were the roadie, you were the booking agent, you were making sure everybody got fed, and still that providing that motherly aspect. Now that, like you said in another interview, your manager is a female, you know, the booking agent's a female, you have more help now. Have you found that not a peace of mind totally, you know, on the spectrum, but have you found
Yeah.
that middle ground where it's like this is the best way to make this life work?
Well, actually, funny story. My manager and booking agent left me about 6 months after my Grammy nomination.
That's crazy. What happened?
Mhm.
They didn't like success?
We won't go into that. We'll skip that. um, but so basically, when that happened, Brandon and I took back over, and I still self manage right now again. You know, it's gonna have to be a really attractive offer for me to trust somebody that much again. I can say that.
Mhm.
Um, but we booked the band for 2 years, and in that time the touring made so much sense. I financially made more money. We got our ticket prices up because, you know, it's hard when you have somebody else fighting for you. um my ticket prices were stagnant, so as soon as I started repping myself, I was like, no, this is what this show is worth to me, and it doesn't matter if that's what it's worth to you, because you're not going to lessen my standards of what I know, the kind of show, that the kind of quality that we bring, you know. And so um after and then you know, COVID had hit, and then when just last year, gentleman Ryan Sloan of Bonfire Music Group had kind of reached out, and he had worked with in the same agency of New Frontier, which I was with a few years ago. um but he's like, I'm at this agency and I was just wondering what you're doing, and so we kind of talked back and forth over about 6 months, and we just started working together almost a year ago. And it's, you know, I was very clear. I was like, this is what it is. This is, I will not play for less than this at the door, and this is the minimum of what it takes to get, you know, for me to break even. And because I don't want to lessen what I pay my guys, because we work very hard. We're just a trio, you know. And so he's really fought for the same vision that I have over the last year. And so it's really been great getting that stress of the booking off. But, you know, I told him, I was like, you know, I was burned pretty heavily. And so you know, it's not that I haven't had options of managers or booking agents. I haven't trusted anybody enough since after getting bit. And so um there we just kind of started the relationship, and it's been really great, you know. And like I said, it gives me more time to focus on the music again, you know. And we've got a lot of really great things on the horizon, you know.
And it seems to me, before we hop into Cry, man, I love that album so much. I thought Wolf Den was great, and then you drop this on us. Um, it seems to me that there's this reoccurring pattern every time you take the reins. You do it yourself, no help. The success just it goes to another level much quicker. But like I said, we'll go back to that. I have to know how you met Brandon. I know you met him when he was a teenager, but
Mhm.
it's hard to find people that take the initiative for you. Like you said, somebody to trust, somebody to go all in.
Mhm.
It's very few bands, very few music groups where, even though somebody's name is on the front, the person next to them is almost just as important.
Oh.
If not more important, the people will never know that. So, when did you meet Brandon? We know he's spectacular because you guys are doing covers all the time. You're doing Michael Jackson, you're doing Prince.
He can definitely do it all. It's no, his parents started bringing him out to the Trampled Under Foot jams in Kansas City at Raytown. We did this jam every Wednesday, and he was just this rock and roll kid, and he started getting fascinated with blues, and he was like, okay, well, who's the digs in town? And at the time it was Trampled Underfoot, so he started coming out and jamming, and Tough was Tough. We'd been together for a very long time, and Nick and his ex-wife or wife at the time were about to have their second child, and so he needed to take leave, and we had this recurring show at this legendary venue, BB's Lawn-Side Barbecue, here in Kansas City. And so I asked Kris, I was like, hey, do you mind if I reach out to Brandon Miller? I was like, he's kind of a rock and roller, but he's a young cat and he's a really good player, and Kris was like, heck yeah, he knows who he is, and we had jammed with him a couple times, over the years. And so he filled in, and we had a wonderful time. And so when I knew that Trampled Underfoot was disbanding, in what was that? It was the end of 2013 was when Kris stepped away, and then we toured through 2014. I was thinking, I was like, I'm gonna have to go solo because it's not Tough without the three of us, and we did the best we could with Jan. And he killed, and I played with him for a long time. um but I was like, I knew that I was gonna go solo, and I I knew that no matter who was in my band, they were going to be compared to Nick and Kris. And so I didn't really want to hire a blues guitarist because it's Nick Schnebelen on guitar, I didn't want the comparison, because the people were automatically going to be like, oh, well, is it as good as this? Or does it make me feel like this? It's like, well, it can't, because this isn't what it is anymore. So I just wanted to try and take it, just right from the beginning. And Brandon can play some blues, so I called him up and I was like, hey, yeah, it was not too long after we had jammed together at BB's when he filled in for Nick. And I was like, hey, this is what's going to be happening next year. Kris is walking away. And, I was like, I've already got a lot of stuff in place. That's just, I'm going to take some of the Tough gigs that were already booked, and then Nick's going to take some, but, I've already got stuff overseas. You want to play some music and travel the world. And he's like, let me think about it. I was like, I know, he started
I'm
playing.
like, what?
Really playing it cool, man. I respected it. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. Let me know. And he got back to me a couple of days later, and he's like, yeah, let's try it out, man. But yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I'll think about it. I'll consider it. It sounds cool. I was like, okay, all right, I get that. Okay, man.
Times click, man. I gotta know soon,
Yeah, I wouldn't have let it go too long, but
But it's
no, I respected it though.
it's gotten to the point you guys are on that telepathy level where you don't, not saying you guys are having full conversations in your head, but you can feel she's going this way with a bass line, let me come this way on the guitar, or etc. And that's a lot of musicians that have studied they can tell it. You can see it by hearing the playing and etc.
Mhm.
And that's always one cool. I wanted a side question real quick because you're so immersed in all these music genres. You know, I think somebody compared the last album to like listening to Gary Clark for the first time. You just hear all the influences, but it's its own entity. You know, for you being that you are the blues person you are, who do you hold at the highest caliber as if you're going to show someone the blues, this is it? Or say, you know, who's that person? Like everyone credits Elvis or Chuck Berry with being the originators of rock and roll.
Mhm.
Who's the person that you would say, like, hey, this is the original blues guy that shouted and put it to the masses? Because a lot of like purists would say it's Charlie Patton, but you got so many people like Robert
Yeah.
Johnson, Blind Lemon, etc.
I think that's kind of a trick question
Mm-hmm.
because are you asking like who started the blues? Is it Skip James? Is it Charlie Patton? And is it Blind Willie? Are you talking about chronologically? Because there were pockets. It happened all at the same, it happened all around the same time because I mean the atrocities and the hardships that were going on and brought the music into that to make the work not so bad. Or are you talking about who modernized the blues? Because then that would be Muddy Waters. Because everybody said that he was selling out when he went electric, because nobody had ever electrified a harmonica before. And so it's like, what do you want to, because then, or you could say Stevie Ray Vaughan helped revive it, and he and Robert Cray popularized it in the 80s. So I mean, it's like, there's the originators and then there's the modernizers of it as well. So I mean, if you want to talk about traditional blues, yeah, I'd say Charlie Patton is a good place to start, but then there's also Bessie Smith as well. And you've got, Rosetta, and you've got, even up into the jazz, like Billy was doing blues, and so you've got all of these different things and different sounds that maybe sonically aren't necessarily strictly blues, but it still is at the same time. You see what I'm saying? So if you want to talk, like, I'm a huge Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. I mean, those are my go-tos. And of course, Etta and Coco. I mean, that nitty-gritty, that would probably be my go-tos as far as like electrified blues.
Considering all the accolades you have, like already, you're in Hall of Fames. You Grammy's coming. I don't care what anybody says. Your Grammy is on the way. It's just a matter of time. But I, there's a select few musicians, like you mentioned, that they pave the way. They have their place in the blues, even if they're not known to the public. You know,
Mhm.
you've studied the blues. Considering you're gonna have a mantle there, what would you like your legacy to be part of that? Would you like to be, hey, you know what? Not only did she carry on her family's tradition, but what really made her stand out was not just her singing, but the fact that she could play and sing, or etc. When you think about that, what is, like, if I were to mention you to my kids a couple years from now, hey, this is Danielle Nicole, let me tell you something about her. What would you like people to say?
I would like to be musically remembered as an original artist that played bass and sang and fronted. Um, you know, Personally, I just like to be remembered as somebody who made people happy and made them feel loved.
That's wonderful. Mira, you thought this out. You got this going. So let's hop to the album. I'm gonna repeat myself. Cry no more, cry no more, cry no more. Go check it out, people. Cry no more. I bought the CD. I'm waiting for the vinyl, like we already discussed. But this album, this was the first time, even though it was a couple years ago, and I'm pretty sure the new one's coming. This was an album you had to do it by yourself. Everything. No, you had some help, but this time the song structure is all you, the lyrics are all you, and you said that the pressure helped. I'm curious, at that point of your career when you were constructing the album, is the pressure needed or is it just a helping hand? Because I would assume by listening to the way you've been encompassed in this style that basically you can just go, you don't need a like, hey, I want this album to go this direction. You can just go, let me write a song. This sounds good. Let me do that. It's not as intense as it would be for newer musicians. Walk me through that process and how the pressure added to it?
Well, I think the pressure of a timeline, it's, it can be helpful or it can be detrimental. It's all subjective. It's all, where you're at personally. It's all what's going on in your life. It's all like, because you can plan out, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna sit down tomorrow and I'm gonna spend 2 hours on songwriting, and nothing comes out of it. Or I can be on the road in the van and write Save Me, just driving to Cleveland. Um, so I think the pressure for me, the pressure of having, saying this is when you must be creative, or this is when you need to be creative by, um, it's all different. Because with Wolf Den, I had a lot of stuff that was already prepared, so I only had to find half the album. Cry No More, it was complete scratch, like you said. And so there was the pressure of more of not getting it done or getting it written, but really figuring out who I am and what Danielle Nicole is, what that sound is like. And it's ever changing, and that's kind of what I figured out with Cry No More. And that's why I think it touched so many genres. And I think that's why I was able to write Bobby. I'd never written anything like that song. And I think that had come from the freedom of not being like, well, this was the tough bubble, the Trampled Underfoot sound, the heavy blues, and the democracy of it all. And it was hard because Kris didn't write, but we all had a collective say. We tried to keep it as democratically as a trio can be. But with the Cry No More album, it was like, that was the pressure, was like figuring out who I am as a solo artist, and having that freedom of choosing songs and trying to write songs and connecting and missing on some of them, and figuring out shows and how to do everything on my own. I think all of that pressure is definitely necessary, and was definitely the contributing factor to finding the confidence to just explore and express, and not be so concerned, I guess, so much with satisfying the tough fans, because like I said before, is like, that's not what it is anymore. So the pressure of having to find myself, I think, definitely contributed to it.
For me, a bass line is make or break for a song. It could be a simple bass line, it could be a fun run, but songs like when you listen to Billie Jean or AC/DC's Love Hungry Man, those are bass lines that they'll even pop up and you're not even thinking of them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very important to have those bass lines. So for me, off this album, Save Me and Pusherman. I gotta lean towards Pusherman. That's my favorite off that. But they have those bass lines. I was curious, what is your favorite bass line that you've ever created? It could be off the new album, it could go back to Wolf Den, but I wanted something that was yours and yours alone, that you feel resonates not just with you but other people, and where you were in that process when you first came up with it or heard it.
I don't know. I would say Save Me is definitely right up top there. I've got a few that I like off the upcoming album, but I really enjoyed playing Wolf Den too.
I love it.
And the bass line definitely does drive. I feel the bass line definitely does drive the song, and it gives the expression, but it also, you have to keep it simple enough to understand, just like with anything that you're trying to express. You gotta kind of keep it simple when you have multiple people and multiple perceptions enjoying it. So Save Me is one of the harder ones to sing against. And Wolfden is too, but I guess I like a challenge. But those are two of my favorites.
Is Save Me your favorite off the album? Because it's not often a album so good that I can't pick a definitive, like, hey, this is the best song for me off the album. Like for this one, it was Burning for You, Save Me, and Crawl. Those were the top threes. And Pusherman's got the bass line. I'm not letting that go at
Yeah.
all. But
That's a driving one.
it
That's a driving one.
it is hard for me to be like, I can't pick one off an album. So what was your favorite tune, and or what was the hardest tune that was the most gratifying when you finally got it?
Well, you know, I have several favorites off of that album too. You know, Save Me is definitely up on the top. I think Bobby is a little more of a personal favorite. Um and you know, Crawl is very empowering. It's I like doing that one live a lot. And it might not be the nicest song, but but it's I think it's relevant, and it's a cool perspective, you know, when that song was brought to me. um but yeah, my favorite, I would say Save Me is right up there. And I like Lord, I Just Can't Keep From Crying sometimes, the Blind Willie song.
Mm-hmm.
The producer Tony, he came to me with that song, and he was like, I would like to take this song and do a new treatment on it. And he had written that drum part for it, and he just started playing it. And I was just like, oh man, that's just it guts, you know. I'm getting chills.
That's the part that lets you know this is a blues song. You know,
Yeah,
that intro and
yeah.
then going in with it.
Mm-hmm. um but yeah, you know, Save Me is a really really important song to me. You know, and I somebody had reached out earlier to me. They were like, well, is it about religion, or is it about a toxic relationship? Or they're like, I read the lyrics and I don't know which one it's about. And I was like, well, maybe it's about none of them and both of them. Like, what is it to you, you know? And I think it's for me, it's about not pushing your beliefs on somebody and not judging somebody because you think that they're doing something alternative to the way that you would do it. And I'm gonna save you, you know. Like, it's just like we all have our own paths, and we all have our own struggles, and you don't know what's going on with them, you know. and and so I think that, coupled with the bass line and just the real heavy groove, um that's one of them. And then, you know, I'd written Bobby about my father, and he, you know, he passed away when I was 16 of cancer. And I took care of him for about 2 years prior to that. So he was ill for a few years before he passed. You know, I was still going to school and stuff. And you know, it's easy. He wasn't like the super, we had a chaotic childhood.
Mhm.
And so it's easy to blame somebody. But then I look back at his situation. He, you know, he grew up without a dad. He didn't, you know, he was born in the 50s and he didn't have a dad. And he has a single mom. And so he didn't really have a greatest example, you know. And so it's like writing about his experiences that I knew, because he, you know, I was a teenager when he passed, so I didn't really know him. And so trying to figure out, like, wow, how do I write about that? And then on top of not having the best relationship with that person, but still it's like, how do I write a tribute song? It's not really a tribute, but how do I musically deal with this? Because I've been able to get through divorces and breakups and marriages through my music. But like, this is the one thing that it's just been this rock just sitting there just waiting to be broken up and get the geode, you know. And so when that came, it was like, and the whole song was written, I was on this windy road just outside of Kansas City, and it was the line about, took a turn too sharp to steal, and he left the answers at the bottom of the hill. And it was just like, there was, when he passed, there were just so many questions. I just didn't know him. And then that song just kind of poured out over the next couple of weeks, and it was really challenging because it's, you know, it's not blues, it's not sonically anything that I'd done prior. It's really the most vulnerable that I'd ever been. And so that was challenging, figuring out if I was ready to give that part of myself away.
Mhm.
And I'm really glad that I did in the end, you know. And we love doing it live, and I hear people singing the words with me, and it's just, it's the most it's the most satisfying, but it's also hard because I tear up a lot, so that's why that's probably my favorite off the album.
And Mira, the connection, everything you just said, that's gonna, because who doesn't have that family member or that friend that for some reason it's a little rocky or it's really rocky and they don't know how to approach it even though they're trying their best, the most positive. Just between you and me and my dad are like that. I love him to death, but golly. Pero, ay Dios mío. So, not to make it a melancholy interview, but
Yeah.
the tribute to your brother, Kris did pass away in July. And again, the accolades. I just love how everyone you're associated with, everyone that you've worked with, like again, you're gonna have higher accolades than them, but everybody's just so loved and so kind, and he was a force behind the kit. When initially, the grieving process had already partaken, and you guys wanted to get this get together you're having coming up very soon for him in Missouri. You got all these all stars together to do a tribute show to him. What's the process you took to get people on it? Because I had a mentor pass away last year from COVID, and the first thing I was thinking is like, yo, he was a heavy metal guy. I'm gonna hit up all the bands I got. I'm gonna hit up his family, ask for permission, and it was very difficult to get certain people to sign on. We never got the blessing for his family, so we had to scrap it. But some bands, they were gun ho. It's like, we got you, we're on it. And then other people, it's like, well, financially, this and that. I'm like, whoa, 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 just are you willing to help? That's all I'm asking right now, and then we'll
Right.
take care of it. So walk me through that process, because the amount of people you got to hop on it is like one of those no questions. We're there.
Oh, it was, and that's one of the most heartwarming and humbling and just amazing things about the blues community, like as a whole. There's no other genre loves each other the way the blues community loves each other and shows up for each other and shows out for each other, and goes to war for each other. And what we did with the one in Kansas City that's coming up on the 30th, we Kris played with a lot of bands here in Kansas City, and it wasn't like, oh, what were the ones that he liked the most, because he toured with Albert Castiglia and Sean Costello, like sorry, Sean Chambers, not Sean Costello, bless his heart. But in Kansas City, he had a couple bands that he was really, really close with, and so we asked them to participate. And that's why Coyote Bill and then Dust Devil Choir, and then Brandon's band is playing prior to our band. And because Kris toured with Brandon and I for about a year, almost a year. And so we reached out to them and just asked if they would want to be a part of the life celebration. We did a fundraiser last July, a few months after he had been diagnosed, and they raised we were very, very blessed to have a lot of really generous people. And Kris's main concern was making sure that Gabby and the twins and their daughter would have a home. And with those funds, they were able to buy a home about October of last year. And then Brandon and I, one of Gabby's best friends, Peter Michael, and sometimes Nick, completely rehabbed the basement and like ran studs electrical, and just built the basement, built a basement so they could have a wonderful space for everybody. And so with this celebration of life, we're able to kind of just gather and just musically celebrate him, which is going to be a lot. I'm hoping it's definitely a lot less stressful, because we had to, we were taking silent auction items and getting all of the merchandise together and re-releasing 4 albums that had been shelved for 10 years and doing all this stuff. But with this, we're just really going to be able to just come together and tell some stories, shed some tears, shed some laughter. And so it was generosity. And then with the fundraiser, on July 15th up in Medford at the Porch. A really great friend of ours, Gracie Curran, she's in a band and tours around, but I've known her for quite a few years. She was like, you guys are going to be on tour in the Northeast. I would love to throw a celebration of life and a fundraiser for his family. And then all of a sudden we have all of these Boston based musicians that were like, I love Kris. Yes, let's do it. And we found the Porch. They're donating 100% of door sales. They're not taking any cut of it. And it's going to go straight to Kris's family. And I truly believe that's just a blessing of being in the genre that we are. The blues, I mean, we're the underdogs, man. Like, we're the underdogs of the music industry, even though blues is the foundation of American music. They're still the underdogs. And I think it's from that kind of close-knit community that the support comes from, and we're so blessed to have it.
Indeed. So now that you're coming back, we're claiming you. I know Missouri, Kansas got you, but you a Philly girl, all right? You a Philly girl, so you're coming back to Ardmore, and you got a bunch of lists and dates. You're going to Nevada, you're going to Texas, and etc. Is there anybody down here in Ardmore or back in Philly that you have to see, or you at least invited to the show? Because that, again, like you said, the blues is a tight knit community. Something about that community there. Like, you'll come back 3 years later and somebody's like, "Oh shoot, man, remember me? I met you at the bar. We almost fought," and it'd be the same person.
No. I'm a Philly girl at heart. I lived in East Falls, man. I lived in East Falls for a little bit. I love Philly. And I'm really excited to do two things besides play Ardmore, because I love that venue so much. And I was so mad because it got canceled in March 2020. Mm-hmm. That was because we ended up calling it the COVID tour, because every city we played shut down 2 days later, and Philly was the one that got actually canceled. And so we've been trying to reschedule this date for a very long time. And so I love the sound there. I love the venue. It's such a gem of a place to play. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm excited to take my mom to D'Alessandro's.
Hey.
And I'm excited to see my buddy Jordan. Because we used to play, we played in Manayunk, we played in Bridgeport, we played in Westchester, we played, all over, the Philly suburbs and in proper and everything. And Jordan was always there. He was a fan of my brother Nick's, from Nick's previous band's days. And so when he was like, "Well, I'm following Nick. I love Nick's vibe," and then we just kind of befriended. We got Jordan as part of the deal, and he's just been such a great dude, man. So I'm excited to see my buddy Jordan.
With performing now, and it's been a while, I wanted to ask you about Go-Go. Now you got another phenomenal drummer. How'd he hop on? But before we get to that, you've grown musically, and there's no doubt that when you do this for so long, your stage presence, it alters. You keep a little bit, you change a little bit. So when you play now, something you said that caught me was the fans see how intense you are when you play, so they can catch the mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that kind of threw me. I was like, what? Usually you can get by if you're just like really like into it. So what are things that you focus on other than, playing bass and having to sing and trying to keep that? Because that's difficult. All right. I tried doing Living on a Prayer on bass with my fingers and I can't get it. I'm like,
Well, that's not the easiest starter one.
Like I said, I love the grooves. And if I can get it with the finger, even though it's supposed to be with a pick, it gives it that boost of confidence. But what are the things like when you perform, you gotta hear? You want to see it, you want to do it. Some people, they have their tricks with the windmill, or they do like the little dance with the microphone. So what are some things when you perform that you have to get in, or you make it a point like, I really want to make sure we nail this tonight?
Well, it's weird. I'm not really, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm not an image driven artist, because I like to dress nice and I want my guys to dress nice and I want to put a professional image forward. But I try not to focus too much on that aspect of it, just simply because 3 songs in, this is what the hair is going to look like and all my makeup's going to be down to here, because I'm not the type of artist that is going to just stand there and not show any emotion because I might sweat and I might get a bad picture. It's not, because that's not what it's about for me. So I don't really, other than I've been rocking a high kick at the end of like really in like heavy songs. So I got to get one of those in like somewhere in the show, but it's not usually planned. But we now that Go-Go and it's just 3 of us, it's we're just so involved in the groove that we're just, we don't, we actually we rehearse, which is really cool, but we don't have like, this is what we must do, so
Was it a quick connection with Go-Go when you guys started to lock down the rhythms and the bass grooves? Because sometimes you got to play a couple songs to feel somebody out, and then other times it's just like, nah, this connection musically, let's roll with it. How'd you get them? Because again, multiple magazines and different distributors, drummer of the year, not just in the 90s, but even now, more current, 16, 18. So how'd you guys link up?
he Brandon, actually, he started playing with Brandon in Brandon Miller and in his band. He started filling in, but I have been like, I'd had been flying drummers in and flying them in on tour, and then it works out for a few months and then doesn't work out anymore. And I've been trying to find, a Kansas City drummer, or at least somebody close that, that I can rehearse with and stuff. And so when I was in between drummers, I'd be like, hey, Go-Go, are you available for such and such and such and such? And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not. And Go-Go didn't jam at all. So I played with him maybe twice in the entire 13 years that I've known him, and so, but I know he's the baddest man around, and I already got the baddest man on guitar in the band, in the world. So I was like, I need Go-Go. And Brandon's like, I know. And he started playing with Go-Go, but Go-Go was playing with a lot of different artists, and he has a lot of integrity, and when I thought that he was just disinterested, I thought it was just a nice way of just being like, no, we're cool. No, because he was just never available I asked him for 3 or 4 times, and he's just like, no, I'm not. And he didn't say that he was booked elsewhere. He just said he wasn't available. So I was like, okay, so I was like, well, I guess he's just not interested, and then and then he'd been on tour with Brandon a little bit, and I guess Brandon had kind of poked around, because I was like, dude, find out what's going on. Like, what, does he just not want to play with me? Like, what is it? And Brandon was like, he texted, he's like, he's not disinterested. And I was like, okay, so he's really just been unavailable. Okay, so then I was able to ask him, and we started jamming at where Brandon cut his teeth was a place called Jerry's Bait Shop, and it's a rock jam, and it's like it's really cool. It's a whole scene in and of itself. But I had been kind of going there and started kind of jamming with Go-Go a little bit, just doing different rock covers and stuff, just doing some Zeppelin or whatever, or some Prince. And I was like, this is really cool. And it felt good. And I would look at Go-Go and I was like, it feels good. It's right, so then I finally was like, hey, dude, are you available to do this? And he's like, yeah, I am. I was like, awesome, and we had some great shows, and I was like, dude, it's, the job is yours, but he had some obligations that he needed to fulfill. And I was like, I don't want you to like cancel other shows to start touring, because I know your word means a lot to you. And that's what had happened with me. Was that I was just like, I kind of got told that my gig wasn't going to be their priority. And I was like, oh, well, that wasn't my understanding. So I need a new drummer. And so I was like, I don't want you to do that, because that's what happened to me. And so he fulfilled his obligations, and he's either out with Brandon or I, or we like to keep him pretty busy. But I mean, he's a cool dude. He's a great drummer. He's a great human being. He puts in the work. And the hang is good. The hang is so important. It's just as important that you can get along off the road and in the van, off shows. Like, it's really important that you can do that. And it's like, he and Brandon, they're just, I don't know how I got 2 unicorns, but I did.
Because you're a good person. It's God's blessings. The last time I spoke with you, I always ended the interviews with this. I always asked what the best piece of advice you've ever been given by somebody else was, and you told me know when to speak and, keep a clear head about a situation. So, being that we're years removed now, it's almost 8 years later, I was wondering, what's the worst advice someone has given you, and did you have to go through the glass door to realize it was bad advice? Or did you hear it and it was like, that is stupid, I'm not doing that?
The worst advice that I got was that I needed to model my business plan after such and such artist because what she is doing works. And that was the one and only conversation I had with this potential manager. And I was like, no. I was like, the conversation ended pretty quickly after that. I think the worst advice that you could ever give someone or ever take is to be different than who you are. There's a difference between, changing your look a little bit or changing your whole model to replicate something else. That's the first sign that they don't believe in you. They believe in the potential of what they can make you. And that is that's not success to me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've preached her name before. Danielle Nicole, coming July 14th, Ardmore Music Hall, Philadelphia. Be there. See the great blues legend. It's always phenomenal to speak with her. She just has that great positivity that will make you feel better. Miss Nicole, again, thank you so much. Always a blessing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking with you.
Guys, as always, be smart, be mindful, be a little bluesy, and I'll catch you next time. Ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. All your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.